The election of Abraham Lincoln to the presidency in 1860 left the United States deeply broken. Southern states were openly debating seceding from the Union and saw the new president as a threat to the institution of slavery. John Crittenden, a longtime senator from Kentucky, attempted a last-ditch compromise to resolve the division. Crittenden was a slaveholder and considered to be a centrist Democratic senator who was known for his skill at compromise and negotiation. On December 18, 1860, Crittenden proposed his compromise to the United States Senate. It was composed of 6 constitutional amendments. The first restored the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which was later repealed by the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. His amendment would also have the demarcation line between slave and free states, as established in that legislation, extended to the Pacific Coast for any future territories. The Second Amendment prohibited Congress from abolishing slavery in places under its exclusive jurisdiction, like military installations, located within states that permitted slavery. The Third Amendment would ensure that slavery could exist in the District of Columbia. The next would prohibit Congress from ending the interstate transport of slaves. The Fifth Amendment stated that the federal government would reimburse slaveholders for slaves that had escaped with the assistance of abolitionists. Finally, the Sixth Amendment prevented the previous ones from being modified or repealed and took away the ability of Congress to abolish slavery in states where it existed. In addition to the constitutional amendments, the compromise also included 4 congressional resolutions to be adopted. The first affirmed the constitutionality and proper execution of fugitive slave laws, which allowed for the return of slaves who had escaped into another state or territory to their original location. Likewise, the second called for the repeal of personal liberty laws, which hampered the implementation of fugitive slave laws. The third resolution sought modifications to the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. Finally, the last called for legislation to end the African slave trade and importation of slaves into the United States. The young Republican Party opposed the expansion of slavery, so Crittenden argued that it was a good deal for them, given that it would leave much of the northern and central portions of the country as free states. Some Republicans seemed to agree with this logic. However, President Lincoln opposed the expansion of slavery into any new territories. He saw this as one of the guiding principles of his party and managed to sway Republicans who were on the fence to his position. This resulted in a rejection of the Crittenden Compromise in the Senate on January 16, 1861, in a 25-23 decision, with all 25 no votes coming from Republicans. Crittenden's proposal was considered at the Washington Peace Conference that took place from February 8 to 27, 1861, a final effort to avoid war and prevent any more states from seceding, as 7 had already done so at that point. However, the Crittenden Compromise again failed to be adopted, given that it allowed for the expansion of slavery into new territories and states, which was unacceptable to most Republicans. The failure of the Crittenden Compromise increased the Southern resolve to secede, as many Southern politicians saw it as reasonable for both sides. They were convinced that no better deal would come along and that Northern politicians would not accept any compromise that included the expansion of slavery, which was mostly accurate. This left secession as seemingly their only option. After his compromise failed and the Civil War broke out, Crittenden returned to Kentucky in an attempt to keep the border state in the Union, which was successful. He remained a supporter of the Union cause until his death in 1863.